Take 10. Is your life kinda complicated? Welcome to One Take, the podcast designed to seek wisdom to live simple, healthy, and happy. We'll get there one take at a time. I'm your host, Jasmine Thomas. Welcome to Take 10. I am your host, Jasmine Thomas, and I am really happy that you are joining me today. Before we start, I want to apologize. I have a cold, so if I don't sound like myself, that's what it is. Thank you for joining me today. On the show, I have a guest with a fabulous success story and a great lesson in life and on entrepreneurship too. I am talking about social entrepreneur Joseph N. Sanberg. Joe, he grew up in a low-income family in Southern California. As a teenager, he was dreaming always about attending Harvard. But get this, guys, he was told by someone really close to him that he couldn't do it. Why? He didn't have the money, right? How many times have you been told you cannot do something because you don't have the money? Well, that didn't stop him from pursuing his dream. He figured out a way to do it. He graduated with honors. And he has gone on to become a very successful entrepreneur. Joe's take teaches us a lesson. Happiness in life does not come from money, guys. Happiness in life comes as a result of serving others, as a result of making other people's lives better. That, he says, is the foundation to a successful business. Service, putting other people's needs first. Joe is a founding investor of Blue Apron. It's one of America's fastest growing provider of home delivered meals. I'm sure you've heard about them. They're all over on television, on the internet. They advertise on a bunch of podcasts. It's a big company, guys. He's also the co-founder of Aspiration.com. This is an online banking and financial firm that is doing things quite different than what we're used to with the regular banking industry. In this conversation, Joe challenges the motives that many entrepreneurs have to be in business, and he offers insight on how we can use business as a force for good. Now, before we jump in, I want to remind you that you can subscribe to this podcast to have every single new episode delivered directly to your iTunes podcast app or whatever podcast player you use, or also delivered to your inbox. All you need to do, guys, is to go on my website, www.yesminthomas.com, spelled YEZMINTHOMAS, and then you will see on the right side the options to subscribe. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to subscribe to both the podcast, so you can get it on your iTunes or podcast player, and also via email, because I write other stuff like blog posts or other things that you won't get on the feed as a podcast, but you can also get it if you sign up to receive my content and my articles using your email. All right, let's jump in. This is my feature conversation with Joseph N. Sanberg. Well, everyone, as I promised you, today we have a very special guest, someone with such a great, outstanding background. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining me today. You have such a great story to tell, and I am so happy that we were able to connect on Twitter. It's amazing how social media connects everyone, and you have an amazing story. And we connected on Twitter, and you told me you should have me on your podcast because I want to tell the world about this. And I was like, okay, you're talking my language. So before we start, tell us a little bit about yourself, Joe. How do you get to where you are now?
Well, through a lot of luck. And thanks so much for having me on. I grew up in a low-income family in Southern California. I was raised by a single mom. And my mom worked hard to make sure that my brother and I never felt like we were of want or less than. But looking back, it was so clear that there was this constant cloud of economic anxiety that gripped our household, like it grips so many other households in America. I was fortunate to make my way to Harvard through a lot of loans and financial aid. I was a liberal activist in college, passionate about making the world better. And when I graduated, I needed to support my mom. So I started my career in New York in the investment industry. And during that first part of my career, I saw how capitalism had really been hijacked to serve itself as opposed to serving people. And, I've always believed that the best way to build businesses is to serve people and make their lives better, and that profits are a byproduct of helping people. They shouldn't be the fetish and obsession itself. So I left the first part of my career on Wall Street to build companies that I thought would really make the world better. And I was a founding investor of Blue Apron, which is the largest meal kit delivery service in America. And it helps so many families every day eat together and eat healthy. And I'm the co-founder of Aspiration.com, which is the new leading financial firm in America built around a different kind of relationship that empowers customers to choose their fees for the banking and investing accounts that Aspiration delivers, even paying zero and being served just the same, because we believe that customers and Aspiration should be on the same side of the table, that as opposed to the old ways of the financial industry where it's heads the financial industry wins, tails the consumer loses, we want to create a relationship between Aspiration and people where it's win-win. And that's made Aspiration.com a beloved company by its customers and the fastest growing online financial company in America.
That's amazing. Now, let me take you back a little bit. Why did you choose Harvard? Besides the obvious questions that, it's an amazing college to go to. Why Harvard, you being in California, why was it that drove you to go there?
Well, I was always, I've always had a sense of adventure, and I thought it would be exciting to try a new place and go to the East Coast. I also was really inspired when I was in high school reading about President Kennedy and the Kennedy family's devotion to public service. And of course, JFK went to Harvard, and that made me really intrigued by Harvard. And there was just a mystique about the campus when I visited, and it was just an incredible opportunity. They also gave me a ton of financial aid, which made it possible to attend Harvard.
So I guess this could be an example for kids who are hoping, to get an education. This is an example. You were not raised wealthy. Your parents didn't have a bunch of money to send you to Harvard. However, you had a goal and you searched for aid. And I'm going to assume you had excellent grades and you were able to get yourself through.
Yeah, in fact, there's a funny story. One of my family members, not my mother, but a different family member who will remain nameless, told me when I was 13 and first got the idea that I wanted to go to Harvard that I couldn't do it. He said, "No, you shouldn't aspire to Harvard. You'll never be able to get in, and even if you get in, you won't be able to afford it." And that really motivated me.
Wow.
And I never forgot this particular family member's telling me that I couldn't do it. I thought about it like nearly every day throughout high school. His voice ringing in my head, "You can't do it. And even if you can get in, you won't be able to afford it." And, we know what happened.
I wonder what Thanksgiving dinner is around now.
Let's just say this particular family member and I are not that close.
All right. So talk to me about your businesses, because you are not the regular entrepreneur. You are more of a social entrepreneur. You believe in serving others in order to become a successful person, and you're obviously very successful. How I imagine your experience working in the financial industry had an impact in you going this direction. But any particular moments that you felt like, okay, this is not what I really want to do or how I want to make a living? I'm trying to find out how do you see the light to do things differently when we live in a society where everything is consumerism and not service? Where do you find the route to do things differently?
My faith in God influences how I think about living, interacting with other people, and building organizations. My faith informs me that we should be devoted to service of others, right? That we gain meaning by focusing on making other people's lives better. And that is what inspires the way I think about building businesses and leadership. It always has to be about the other. And one of the things that's made, I think, society so coarse today is that we treat each other as units of consumption, units of production, units of votes, instead of treating each other like human beings and focusing on the other and the struggles that we each all face in our daily lives. And that sensibility, which comes from my faith in God, inspires how I think about building businesses and serving people.
And actually, before we scheduled this interview, you were telling me about entrepreneurs that they should focus more on building businesses that make people's lives better and not so much just making the money. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, making people's lives better and creating a valuable business are aligned. What a lot of entrepreneurs miss is the best way to build a valuable business is to serve people and to solve problems in their lives. And the irony is those entrepreneurs that are focused and obsessed with near-term profits actually aren't the ones who build the most valuable businesses over the long run. And rather, it's the entrepreneurs who are driven by solving problems for people and making people's lives better. Those are the entrepreneurs that build the most valuable and enduring companies.
And, we can see examples like Bill Gates, perfect example of that.
Yeah, the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders are not motivated by money. They're motivated by solving problems and building things. The people who get into entrepreneurship because they want to make money are rarely the entrepreneurs who succeed.
Now, Joe, like I've talked to you, I'm in a journey to find out really what my purpose in life is. I could superficially, from the little bit that we've talked and exchanged messages on Twitter, I could judge that you have figured it out. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
No, I haven't figured it out. I'm trying my best every day. No.
How is it that you are where you are in terms of putting so much effort and resources into helping others? How did you figure that out? How did you wake up one day and said, I'm going to do that? Or was it a gradual process? I understand that it comes from your faith, but how do you arrive to wanting to do these things?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the compliment, but I have not figured it out. I'm struggling every day, just like we all struggle every day to do our best and to do more and be better. I pray every day. I pray a lot and think a lot and reflect a lot about how I can be more compassionate, how I can do more to help others, and how I can be more effective in creating a better world. And it's a process that never ends. We're always trying to become better. And I think that striving and pursuit of becoming our best selves is a pursuit that consumes us as it should until we die. I think the act of living is a dynamic act of constantly striving to be our best selves.
I totally agree. And, to me, some people ask me, how do you do it? And to me, it's like it is a daily process. It is an ongoing. I have nothing figured out. And the more that I try to figure out and the little bit that I think I'm figuring it out, then I realize that I don't know anything. And there's so much for me to learn and to do. And it's really a daily process, but I'm glad I'm aware of it, and it seems to me like you are too, and it's a daily thing that you try to invest on figuring this out and investing on other people and helping others, making their lives better.
Thank you.
Now, let's talk about life and career balance because you are a busy guy. You have you're running many businesses. You have students that you mentor. You volunteer teaching financial personal finance at Casa Teresa in California. How do you manage your time, and how do you do it all?
Well, I don't do it all,
You
and I
don't?
think one of the hard I think one of the hard wisdoms of life is you have to make choices. We can't do all things well, and we can't be everything to all people. Um, I've made a lot of trade offs in my life, um, and the choices I have made are choices that have been right for me, but aren't the choices that might be right for other people. And so I'd share them, but I wouldn't impose them on others because I think each of us have to look within ourselves and understand how we find meaning and how we make our own best contribution to the world in the life we have to live. I don't have a family. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. And, that's a trade off and a sacrifice I've made to pour myself into the businesses I've built, into the volunteerism and public policy advocacy that I do. There's sacrifices involved with that. And, some days you feel like you're making the right choice, and other days, can be a lonely existence, and maybe not the right choice for everyone. But by no means, can I do it all or have it all? And I don't think anyone can. It's rather a constant process of making choices and trade-offs, and we do the best, I think, with the information we have to make the right choices. And like I said, some days it feels like you make the right choice. Some days it feels like there's uncertainty, and I just try and pray a lot about it every day, and just do the best I can to be compassionate to others and make a positive contribution to the world while I'm here.
And do you feel like at the end of the day, the choices that you're doing, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, are those choices bringing you peace? Do you feel at peace at the end of the day?
Some days, some days, I think that anyone who tells you that they're in this constant state of peace and self-assuredness is lying to you. I think part of being human is experiencing doubt and constant wondering. By and large, I feel at peace with the choices I've made, and I gain tremendous meaning from what I do. I feel a deep and constant sense of gratitude to be able to contribute to the world and help others in the way that I do. And as part of being human, there are constant doubts that I experience, like we all experience. I just try and make the best choices that I can every day and make the most impact I can and be as compassionate as I can to others, and hope that they're compassionate back towards me.
And I think I'm going to tell you something. I think you should be proud of what you're doing and of the choices that you're making because you are making a huge difference in your community. You are an extremely generous person, and I'm gonna tell everyone about some of the things you do. You fund full ride scholarships for college students, and not for one, not for two, not to pay one class or two, to really get them through college, and having the possibility to do that should bring some immense sense of satisfaction to you, even if you don't have a family or some other stuff that other people have. The fact that you're able to change lives, that probably means the world to you. What are some projects that you're working on? I know you're spending a lot of time on aspiration.com. What are other businesses, projects, services, volunteering that you're doing that's exciting that you want to share with our audience?
Well, I founded and I chair an organization called Cal EITC for Me,
Mm-hmm.
which connects with low-income Californians to ensure that they get the earned income tax credit. So about 18 months ago, I lobbied California to introduce a state earned income tax credit. There's been a federal earned income tax credit for over 35 years. And the earned income tax credit is a wage subsidy that makes work pay better for folks who earn under a certain income level. But California had been one of the states without a state version of the earned income tax credit. Yet California has the highest level of poverty of any state in the country. So I got the state to launch an earned income tax credit, and then I founded a statewide organizing program called Cal EITC for Me, which promotes the earned income tax credit to low-income Californians and helps them get free tax preparation services so they don't have to pay to file their tax return and claim their earned income tax credit. Last year, through Cal EITC for Me, we got about $1 billion of state and federal earned income tax credits to the pockets of about 400,000 low-income, very hardworking California families. And I think that there shouldn't be any family that has to raise kids in a state of persistent economic anxiety. There is just a terrible disease of economic anxiety that is gripping American families. You know, the supermajority of American families couldn't absorb a financial shock over $500. And that's just not the way it's supposed to be in America. And I think we have to create economic security for everyone to defeat this villain of economic anxiety that's afflicting so many families. And in California, I'm working on that issue through Cal EITC for Me, and the thousands of dollars that we bring low-income families every year through their state and federal earned income tax credit.
And this is one of the things that I'm talking about. How do you come up with these ideas? Was this your idea? How did you get the vision to identify that opportunity to benefit so many people and then have the energy to push for it?
Well, I prayed a lot about how I can make a difference in California and help a lot of people. And I thought about what kinds of programs have helped low-income families around the country. And as I thought about that and recognized that the earned income tax credit is one of the most, and has been one of the most effective ways of helping create economic security for people, and then learned that California didn't have a state version of it, it seemed clear that I ought to focus on getting California to adopt the state earned income tax credit and then ensuring that every Californian who's eligible claims their earned income tax credit.
When it comes down to a $500 emergency, even the middle class, most of the middle class are living paycheck to paycheck. I think it's 7 out of 10 families live paycheck to paycheck.
Well, you're right. Most American families live in a state of constant economic anxiety and uncertainty. It's not supposed to be that way in America, and we can change it. We have the abilities, the know-how to change it. We just lack the will to change it. And that's where I'm focused, is harnessing our collective will to say no. In America, you're not going to grow up in this persistent state of economic anxiety and uncertainty. In America, everyone's going to enjoy basic economic security so that they can live fully human. That's the kind of country and society that we want to have. And we can have it if we harness the will to achieve it.
But I also think, Joe, that it starts within ourselves too. I think many of us don't make that effort, and we need to do some introspective work to realize that it is more important to have that financial security for our families and a foundation to be able to afford college for our kids than to get the next car or the next whatever, you name it. I think our society, it's really involved in consumerism, and we value more the stuff that we have than the opportunities that we can save for the future.
I understand what you mean.
How do you think us as individuals, beyond the collective will, us as individuals, what could we be doing to make a contribution to improving not just the well-being of our families, but then creating a collective impact to our society?
We have to demand more of our elected officials. We can't succumb to the low expectations that they set for us. We can't succumb to this notion that economic anxiety is the price of capitalism, because it's not true. And it won't change until we each individually and together demand more.
Excellent. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time. You really leave my head spinning, wanting to learn more and know more and make changes in my personal life. And I really thank you and appreciate your time. Before we go, how can people connect with you? I know you're big on Twitter. Do you use any other social media channels, or how can people get in touch with you, follow you, learn about your projects?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter or contact me via Twitter. Joseph N. Sanberg is my handle on Twitter. They can also contact me through aspiration.com. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate having you, learning about your projects, your background, your insight, and I'm sure our audience appreciates you being with us too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. So much wisdom in this conversation, guys. I hope that you have enjoyed it, really. And if you did, please make sure to share it on social media. Tell your friends. Share it on Facebook. I mean, a lot of people, that's the way they share their stuff now, through Facebook. So if you want to tweet it, share it on Facebook. I've made it easy. If you go on my website, you can just share it easily. If you are on iTunes, you can just choose the option to share this podcast or share this episode, and it's just really easy. Help me share the wisdom with the world, guys. And I do hope you feel inspired and encouraged to invest more in serving those around us. I know, with such busy lives, we're all busy, everyone's running around. Sometimes helping others, it's really the last thing that we ever think about. And don't forget also to check out the show notes available on my website, www.jasminethomas.com. There will be links to items we mentioned in this podcast. There's also going to be links to Joe's contact information. And on every single podcast that I do, there's also a blog post affiliated with the podcast. So if it's like take 10 for this one, you can go on my website in the podcast section, look for take 10, and that's where you're going to find a summary of the podcast content and also all the links to the guest and the mentions that we have on the show. Now, don't forget to connect with me either. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, anywhere on social media, really. My handle is @JasmineThomas. And if you would like to send me an email, you can do that. The address is podcast@jasminethomas.com. And just before we go, I would like to invite you to subscribe, rate, and review the show. If you are on iTunes, you can do it by leaving a rating and a written review in the ratings and reviews section of the podcast on iTunes. These guys, it's super important so that people know what the show is about, what kind of impact the show is making. This helps other people who are looking for shows to listen to get an idea of what this is about. So if you're enjoying it, if you like it, I would really appreciate if you can go and leave me a rating and a written review. And if you don't listen through iTunes, please leave me a review anyway in whichever player that you're using. This is all I have for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to bringing you more inspiring and smart conversations. Don't forget, keep it simple. I'll talk to you guys on the next take.